workshop, this training, short-term training program. I also would like to thank my office director, Dr. Rajiv Singh Raghuvanshi sir, and Dr. Jayaprakash sir, and Dr. Shashi Bhushan for providing me and allowing me to attend this short-term training program, which is sponsored by All India Council for Technical Education. So today uh, uh, we are going to discuss about the pharmacovigilance, which is an important part of the drug discovery cycle. And I hope you all will enjoy this session. Kindly be attentive so that you all get some idea about the pharmacovigilance, what pharmacovigilance program of India is, and the how the adverse drug reactions are being reported in our country, and what happens to those reports, and how the pharmacovigilance came into the picture. So let me start the presentation right now.
So please share your screen as it is not visible. Yeah, okay, sir.
So I think it has started. So today I'm working from home actually
Sir, can you
because
please do the full screen mode?
okay, sure. Is it not coming right now properly?
Sir, it is not visible in full screen mode, sir, right now. You have to make the screen full visible on the screen.
I don't know whether there is
So from
possible.
the slideshow, you can do that.
Okay, fine. Okay. I thought something else in in this software. Yes, I think it is visible now.
Yes, sir, it is now clearly.
So first of all, this we'll talk about the overview of pharmacovigilance, how pharmacovigilance came into the picture, what pharmacovigilance is, how our program was started, how this program came into the picture in our country, and how we are doing, how we collect the data of adverse reactions from all over the country, and how and what all things we do at Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission Ghaziabad. So first of all, it's about what about pharmacovigilance is. It is a science and activities relating to the detection. First, we have to understand what when and where these adverse reactions are happening. We have to detect them, then we have to assess them and understand them. And after that, after understanding, we have to know how the adverse reactions can be prevented. So, or any other kind of drug related problem, how it can be uh, prevented or stopped. So this our actual role as a pharmacist, what we actually do, we assure the safe, accurate, rational, and cost-effective use of medications. And what activities we do the patient interviews where we ask the patient uh, about their problems, their morbid conditions, what diseases they have, what comorbidities they have, and we also discuss what kind of treatment they have been taken before coming to the hospital or before visiting to the doctor. And then we do the we check the prescription, and we do the medication chart review. We also do the water round participation for the patients who have been admitted to the hospital. We also do the therapeutic drug monitoring. I think all our fellow pharmacists, the students all might have heard of this term therapeutic drug monitoring, which is a very important thing. In our country, actually, we these all things are there in the books, but we actually don't do it on the ground. This therapeutic drug monitoring is one of the most important thing actually uh, which actually affects the patient's health. Because the drugs which have a lower therapeutic index, like digoxin, if I talk about warfarin, so these drugs have very lethal side effects if their dose is not monitored properly. And the adverse drug reaction monitoring, obviously, and the patient counseling, which is also one of the most important part of the treatment. But in India, we have so much load of patients, we don't get time to actually counsel the patients and also provide the drug information. And this drug information can be asked by anyone, like it can be asked by the doctors, the treatment providers, the healthcare providers, these, those can be of any stream, like gynecologists, physicians, general physicians, endocrinologists, or surgery people, the surgeons. Anyone can ask the drug information. So when we receive some drug informations, we have to reply to the person who is asking the question, the information, in a very informative and very concise, very brief manner, so that they don't they get time, they easily understand what actually we want to convey, and they can tailor the treatment of the patient in a effective manner, so that the patient is not harmed, and they get the full benefits of the treatment what the healthcare provider is actually intended to give. Now, what now, because this is the role actually, but when we talk about the adverse drug reactions, because this is what we do at the Pharmacovigilance Program of India. So first, let me tell you about what adverse drug reaction is. It is a response to a drug which is noxious, means harmful, and unintended, which is not planned or meant to, which occurs at doses normally used in humans or men. For the prophylaxis means prophylaxis means the diagnosis for diagnosing the diseases or therapy of the disease, or for the modification of any physiological function. This is the definition of adverse reactions as per WHO. So you can understand anything which is not good, which is harmful, which is actually not intended, and it happens usually on the doses which are normally used in patients or people for the prophylaxis, diagnosis, therapy of the disease, or for the modification of the physiological function. Maybe lengthy definition, but it is very easy. Just if you go by each word and if you break them one by one, and you will understand what actually this definition want to say. So why it is needed, that means we all know this is very common, adverse reactions are very common. So why actually we want to invest so much to get to know about the adverse reaction? Like this happens, everyone knows some good effects, some bad effects are there for the allopathic medications, but this actually, as per the data which we received, like ADRs are among the leading cause of death in many countries as per the WHO. And also in India, one study was done, and now many studies are being done and conducted. So it accounts for 5% of all hospital admissions in India. Means 5 out of 100 admissions in the hospital are because of the adverse reaction. So this is not right. This is not at all right, and it has to be stopped. And how it will be stopped? Once we know the adverse reaction which are being happening in our country, we have to have some kind of data so that we can use those data, and we can stop those adverse reactions from happening in the patients, so that they do not, the patients or the government do not be economically burdened. And obviously patients are actually, not only they'll be economically burdened, but also the health also will be deteriorated, which is not right. And this is our ultimate aim, to protect the patient's health and well-being. Now, you all know what the life cycle of the drug. So when pharmacovigilance come into the picture, this is before a drug is available to the patients in the market, it actually goes through various clinical studies. So in those clinical studies, the drug is like tested on animals and then tested on humans once it clears the preclinical studies, and then only it gets to the approval phase by the CDSCO. The CDSCO is the regulatory authority which regulates all approvals of any kind of drugs in the market. So in the clinical phases, there are 4 phases. Out of those 4, only 3 will happen in the clinical trial phase. But when the drug is approved by the National Drug Regulatory Authority, then this drug will be approved, and then the drug will be available in the market. And also, and this thing is called as post-marketing surveillance or pharmacovigilance or phase 4 clinical studies also. So these all are the synonymous terminologies. So as you know, in the clinical phases, in the first 3 clinical phases, the drug will be studied on only the healthy volunteers, not on the patients. And also in the phase 3, obviously the patients will be taken, but those patients will only have that particular disease for which this drug is being invented. So you can understand, like the patients in the phase 3 will not have any kind of other comorbidities or any other comorbid conditions, and these phases only will take a limited number of patients or the healthy volunteers. So we don't get to see the actual effect of the drug when given to patients who are having more than one condition. Like if suppose the drug is being studied for hypertension, now in the clinical phases only hypertensive patients will be included in the study, but not others. And when you come to the real world situations, most of the times patients with diabetes and other many other conditions with comorbid conditions. So this is very important, and when the drug is approved, and then this adverse reaction studies are very important. So one more thing which also makes us do pharmacovigilance is the populations which were not studied during the pre-marketing phase, in phase 1, 2, and 3. Those all the populations are not included in the study. Now, patients with relevant comorbidity, which has already been told to you, the comorbid conditions will not be taken, like hepatic or renal impairment. Many people will have, many patients will have. They will not be taken into the study. So we will not know what kind of situations they feel like, because most of the drugs are cleared by the hepatic or renal pathways only. So when there is some kind of, hello, is there any problem?
No, sir, but little bit, I think network fluctuation हो रहा है थोड़ा सा, but it's okay, sir. There is
Okay,
slight network issue.
okay, might be slight network issue might be there, but now it should be okay, I think, because it showed like some problem, internet connection was unstable, but I'm trying to speak more loudly right now. So like hepatic or renal disorders are actually taken into consideration before giving any medications to the patient. They have to be titrated. Now this is thalidomide tragedy. I think everyone might have gone through this thing. This picture everyone might have seen. Yeah, this picture is actually a baby which was delivered after after his mother was taking this thalidomide drug. Thalidomide drug was approved for the use in the pregnant women for morning sickness. So when the mothers, when the pregnant women, they delivered their babies, the babies had this kind of situation. Their limbs were not developed properly. You can see in this picture. Their limbs were like seal-like limbs. So this condition was called as phocomelia. This happened in somewhere around the year two, this 1960. So so you can see this thalidomide disaster was like in the United States. This was there was a doctor called this Dr. Francis Scalesi, which was working with the FDA, and she did not want this drug to get to the US market. So what she did, she asked further tests to the company, and she delayed the application process. And when she delayed it, obviously many babies in the US, many mothers, many pregnants in the US were actually saved. So she was also presented with some President Award in 1962. So this thalidomide disaster happened in the year 1961, and further many studies, many discussions happened, and by WHO there was a program called Program for International Drug Monitoring came into the picture in 1968, and WHO asked the Uppsala University to take it up. So in 1968, Swedish government and WHO creates Uppsala Monitoring Center, and this also a collaborating center for program for international drug monitoring. And it also ensures that early signs of previously unknown medicine related safety problems are identified and information about them shared and acted upon. So this was the actual motto of starting this program for international drug monitoring. So WHO, for only for pharmacovigilance, they have many collaborating centers. In Sweden, it is Uppsala Monitoring Center. In Norway, it is for pharmacovigilance training related activities will happen from there. And in Morocco, the rational use of medicine, the pharmacovigilance for preventing ADRs, this collaborating center is there. In Netherlands, LAREB, also for training of patient reporting and patient reporting systems. And in India in 2017, we became the collaborative center for pharmacovigilance and public health programs and regulatory services. So this was one of the biggest achievements for India, that we became a collaborative center for WHO for pharmacovigilance and public health programs and regulatory services. Because what we do, because we actually have pharmacovigilance system in place with the various national health programs which are being run by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare into the country. The programs are which we have collaboration with, National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program and National Tuberculosis Elimination Program, which was previously known as the Revised National Tuberculosis Control Program, National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, NVBDCP, and National AIDS Control Program, NACO, and other program, like one more is there. Yes, NDD, National Deworming Day. There are many where this albendazole is being given to the children of school going children of age between 1 to 19 years. So those will be given albendazole by the government for free of cost. So to prevent the Helminth infection. So for all of them, we do pharmacovigilance. We have collaboration. The Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission have collaboration with many national programs. So this is why we became the pharmacovigilance, the collaborative center for pharmacovigilance in public health program. Also in regulatory services, why we have with that regulatory services, we provide recommendations to the regulatory services regarding the what data we receive from all over the country. We do the analysis and we send our recommendations to the regulatory services, on which the regulatory authority acts upon, and they through their SEC, the subject expert committee, they actually move their recommendations to the marketing authorization holders for working upon. So this is how the collaborative centers are with WHO. So now it comes to the Indian scenario. Means we have already discussed about what pharmacovigilance is, what adverse reactions are, how this pharmacovigilance came into the picture, what is the need of pharmacovigilance, how WHO come up with the program for international drug monitoring, and how we became a part of this program for international drug monitoring. And now in the Indian scenario, how we do it, means what are the actual things we do at IPC, I'll show you now. So now, as per Indian scenario, this first of all, I'll tell you about how this pharmacovigilance program of India came into the picture. Actually, in the year 2010, actually the history is far more before it has already started, but it could not take off due to some many administrative kind of issues. But in the year 2010, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare took a step, and they launched pharmacovigilance program of India in the making the national coordination center at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. But there are, because we all know AIMS is already overburdened, and they could not take the responsibility. They could not means what we discharge their responsibilities as they were intended to. But in the year 2011, in the month of April, I think this program was shifted from AIMS New Delhi to Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, Ghaziabad. So this is an autonomous institute of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Now this National Coordination Center for Pharmacovigilance Program of India is based at IPC. So IPC was already there, which was actually doing the publishing the Indian Pharmacopoeia reference substances. It also publishes a National Formulary of India, and it is also now working as National Coordination Center. So Indian Pharmacopoeia and reference substances are actually setting up the standards for drugs in India, and National Formulary of India is actually promoting rational use of medicines. And by the National Coordination Center Pharmacovigilance Program of India, we are completely maintaining the quality of medicines and also ensuring the safety of medicines. So, so those programs for safety monitoring are pharmacovigilance program of India, material vigilance program of India. Pharmacovigilance, we all know, we are looking for the adverse reactions about the drugs, and material vigilance program of India is any kind of adverse events with the medical devices we look on. And hemovigilance program, this hemovigilance program is housed at National Institute of Biologicals, Noida, Sector 62, where this is being run, and blood related products will be monitored from through this program. And adverse event following immunization, which is another program of but it is run by the Universal Immunization Program of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare itself. So there are programs which are actually looking for the safety of safety monitoring, doing the safety monitoring of the medical products throughout. So now the question comes, who should report adverse reactions, and what information is relevant to collect? Where will reporters find the adverse reaction forms? Whom will reporters send the completed forms, and how will reporters send these reports? So now one by one we'll take this upon. So Who is responsible for pharmacovigilance? Anyone? Uh, just excuse me. Let me take some water, please. So, who is responsible for pharmacovigilance? The who means who can report the adverse reactions? Anyone of healthcare settings or consumers, pharmacists, practicing clinicians, nurses, paramedics, consumers, non-healthcare professionals, anyone can report adverse reactions to pharmacovigilance program of India. And now what has to be what to be reported? It can be serious, non-serious, listed, non-listed, frequent adverse reactions or rare adverse reaction, anything which is like was not intended to be getting by the patient, but they have been experiencing some things which were not intended, has to be reported to pharmacovigilance program of India. Now, when it comes to the serious, what you can understand by this term serious? A serious adverse event, it is an experience or reaction, it is any untoward medical occurrence that at any dose results in death or life-threatening. It requires inpatient hospitalization or prolongation of existing hospitalization. It results in persistent or significant disability, incapacity, or is a congenital anomaly or birth defect, you can say, or any other medically important condition or serious are to be considered as serious. Now, how the adverse reactions can be reported to PVPI. So first mode is our helpline number, which is 1800 180 3024. So how you can learn this number? I will miss what I actually learned this number. How I could remember this, like 1800 all toll free numbers will have. So you all know that 1800 means all. It starts with means this is the toll free number for the public or healthcare professionals, and 180 is like just remove 10 from 1800, it becomes 180. So again this case same thing, and 30 days 24 hours. So this is how we can remember this number. But let me tell you, this number is not functional for 30 days, 24 hours in a month. It is only available on all from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. This number is available. Another way to report adverse reaction is adverse reaction reporting form for healthcare professionals. Right now, we are using the version 1.3, and this red color form is this. You can see the red highlights in this form. This form is available for all the healthcare professionals. They can report it, and this form is only available in English language. And because all the healthcare professionals, obviously, they know this language throughout the country. This is like universal language in the medical field. So this can be used by the healthcare professionals. And another way is the mobile app, which is only available on the for the Android platforms. We are working on the iOS also. So soon we will be releasing this application. Hello. Soon this will be available for the iOS users. So this I would recommend to all of you to download this mobile application from the Google Play Store, and you can use this app for reporting adverse reactions. Okay. Now you may have the doubt that how patients can report. So this we have also one blue color form for the consumers. So any consumer, patient, relative, or anyone can report their adverse drug reactions through this blue color form. This blue color form is actually available in many languages. In more than 10 languages it is. Hindi, English, Bengali, Tamil, and Malayalam, Odia. So many Assamese. So these languages are available in this form. And one more thing, these forms can be downloaded from our website, which is www.ipc.gov.in. From this website, you can download these ADR reporting forms. And these forms, they can be sent through the registered post or by post, or else you can scan them and the email ID is already there in the form, and you can send those filled forms to us by sending an email. Now, suspected adverse reactions reporting form for health. We'll discuss about this healthcare professionals forms. So first is patient information and suspected adverse reaction, suspected medications, and reported details. So these all four parts are very important. These four sections, the whole form is divided in these four parts, and those all four information must be there. Then only the reports will be good. Otherwise, see, anything like suppose you are cooking something, while cooking, if you forget to put some garam masala or salt or anything, so it will not come up with a good recipe, right? So this, the same happens with this pharmacovigilance. If we don't put good data, we will not get good results. So bad data goes in, garbage means garbage goes in, garbage comes out. So this is the same. So anything, all the information should be there, then only we can get good information, good amount of information, and then only we'll get good amount of results, good results. So now, if we talk about the patient informations, we have in subsections like patient initials, age at the time of event or date of birth, and their demographics like male, female, or and their weight and height. All those information to be. I think someone has unmuted themselves. Kindly unmute. Kindly mute yourself, please. So. So this comes to the patient information. Now the second part is suspected adverse reaction. So in this date of the reaction started, and if it is recovered, then the date of recovery and what kind of problem happened, this can be described in this section. Now the third part is suspected medication. In the suspected medication, anything about the drug, all the things about the drug, the name, the brand, is it generic, who is the manufacturer, what is the batch number, what is the expiry date, what was the dose which was used, what was the route through which the drug was given, oral like subcutaneous or anything, or IV or IM. The frequency means once a day or twice a day, twice a day, or thrice a day, whatever it is. The therapy dates, when the therapy was started and stopped, and the indication, which is very important, for the drug was given for what, because many times the drugs will be used as per the judgment of the physician. Many times physicians will use the drug which is not listed, means for the indication which is not listed for the drug. So those in many conditions such drugs are being used. So indication is very important, and their causality assessment. So this causality assessment is little tricky part. It takes a lot of time to understand. Some lot of exercises it takes, and I will try to take you through that. But it takes a separate session. Then only one can understand about causality assessment. And now means what kind of action was taken. like drug was withdrawn or dose was increased, dose was reduced, dose was not changed, not applicable, and unknown. So I think many of you will be knowing in what circumstances we will not be able to we will have this option not applicable. So I will tell you like the drugs which are longer, which are tend to be taken long for longer period, can be stopped. But suppose the drug is only single time treatment, then how what the dose how the drug withdrawal date will be taken off. So here not applicable will be checked. Now, this rechallenge information is very important. In many cases, suppose some adverse reaction happened, and after that the drug was stopped and the reaction was subsided, and again the drug was given. So in many circumstances we see that the physicians, healthcare providers do not have any other option instead of giving that particular drug. So we have to give that medication and we have to manage the side effects. There are many circumstances like that. In cancer patients this happens a lot of times. So rechallenge is like the point at which a drug is again given to a patient after its previous withdrawal, and mark the appropriate option through this reaction reappeared after reintroduction. So whatever happened. So when the rechallenge is done, after rechallenging a drug, if the reaction again comes out, means the patient is again experiencing the same problem which was there before the withdrawal. So the rechallenge will be positive rechallenge, but in many cases we don't see the reaction again happening after rechallenging. So in that cases, the rechallenge will be negative rechallenge. The same happens with the dechallenge. So in dechallenge, what it is, in dechallenge when the drug is given and there is means if there is dechallenge, then after dechallenging the ADR is subsided, then it is called as positive dechallenge. But after dechallenging, if the ADR is not getting subsided, it is negative dechallenge. So we all must learn these terminologies, which are very important. So any other concomitant medications has to be listed here in the 11th section, and reported details has to be listed here, so that if in case we need some more information on this case, we can contact the reporter and get those details from the reporter himself or herself. And any other important sections, these are the other important sections where which if the information is available, we can fill them off, like their relevant test and laboratory data, and their seriousness, or and their kind of any kind of allergies, pregnancy related information, whether the patient is a smoker or alcoholic. So all those things can be listed here. And then the outcome, whether the ADR was recovered or recovering or fatal or not recovered, whatever it is, and recovered with sequel. So this recovered with sequel is like the ADR has been subsided, but it has left some problems. Like suppose the patient, because of some ADR, patient got stroke. So usually in stroke, many times either the right side or the left side will stop working. So once the stroke is being subsided, but and the half of the part of the body is not working, but it, it was recovered, but it has caused some kind of numbness or some kind of paraplegia in some places, in some part of the body. So this is called as recovered with sequel. So in such circumstances, we should choose this option. So this is how whole adverse reaction reporting form is to be filled up. And if the information is more and it cannot be filled into this form, you can use an extra sheet, the plain sheet you can use. Now comes to the causality assessment. It is a little bit tricky part. Means how likely is the medication can be the cause of this problem to the patient. So we have to think in a very detailed manner, because simply see, if we are doing something, if we are searching for something, we automatically starts to see the things like suppose if we think like many of the students will have different aims in their lives, I'll say, I'll tell you an example. Many of the students will be like they want to become a pharmacist or they want to become a doctor, but many of the students are studying because of their parents, because their parents wants to make them study that you have to be the pharmacist or the doctor or the engineer. But each and everyone have their different set of ideas. They want, like someone wants to just, they are studying but they want to open a business, they want to become an entrepreneur, and or else they want to do something else in their lives, or they want to go for music or some kind of instrument they play. So whenever they see some, so those things, they will only see those things, they'll not look at other things. So this happens, the same happens when we are doing pharmacovigilance. If we look at any drug, yes, this because of this drug, this ADR has been happening. So it is not like that. Every time whenever we see some drug causing adverse reaction, we don't have to reach to the conclusion. First we do the causality assessment, then only we can attribute that particular drug to the adverse reaction. So how we do it, there will be many doubts. Yes, this causality, this drug might have caused this certainly this ADR was caused by the drug. No, it was due to the patient's disease. Some answers may be like yes, because it interacted with another medication, and some will say that no, it was another drug prescribed with it, means some kind of interaction was there. So those kind of many different situations, many different mindsets will be there of each and everyone. So this causality assessment was actually made feasible for each and everyone, so that we can have like the SOP, right? So just it is just like SOP. Systematically, we have to follow it, and then only we can attribute particular drug to the adverse reaction. So while deciding causality assessment, while doing the causality assessment, we have four criteria. These four criteria are time relationships between the drug use and the adverse event, presence and absence of other competing causes like medications, disease process itself. Number third, response to the drug withdrawal or dose reduction, which is D challenge, and response to the drug re-administration, which is re-challenge. So all those things we must know, then only we can do the causality assessment. In cases we don't know any of the information, then the causality assessment cannot be done properly. Okay. So here the what WHO Uppsala Monitoring Center came up with the causality assessment scales for the drugs. See, there are many causality assessment scales available, and for drugs it is different, for medical devices it is different, for vaccines it is different. So it is what I'm talking about right now, it is for the drugs itself, and the criteria which the causality assessment scale what we are using is WHO UMC causality assessment scale, because there are many other scales like Carson assessment scale and Naranjo scale. We are not talking about them. We are only staying with sticking up with the WHO Uppsala Monitoring Center's causality assessment scale. So it gives us the causality parts like certain, probable, possible, unlikely, conditional, and unaccessible. So you can see by looking at these terminologies, you may understand that yes, in certain they want to say that yes, this drug has caused this event. Probable, likely means yes, this drug might have caused this. Means this drug is likely to cause this reaction, and by possible, unlikely, this means the whole criteria is going with their terminologies itself. So one by one we will bifurcate them, but we will not go much into the detail, because the causality assessment is itself is a whole lot of about exercise, by doing only, you will come to know, you will understand how causality assessment is done. So what I am giving right now is an overview about the causality assessment. So when we talk about the certain, is it is the event or laboratory test abnormality with plausible time relationship to a drug intake. Means we have taken the drug, then only we have means within some time frame, like within 6 hours or within 2 hours or within one day, we are getting means this adverse reaction. So some plausible time relationship between the drug intake and the reaction has to be there, and it cannot be explained by the disease or other drugs. Okay, so in many situations, the diseases will have such symptoms which are likely with the adverse reactions caused by the drug. Means the adverse reactions also and the symptoms of the disease also will be looking alike. So we have this has not to be explained by the disease and other drugs in case of certains. Response to the withdrawal is plausible pharmacologically and pathologically. Means, when we stop the drug, the ADR subsides. Even definitive pharmacologically or phenomenological, that is an objective and specific medical disorder or a recognized pharmacological phenomenon. Means like it should be listed. In simpler words, we already have the data. Yes, this drug might have caused this reaction. We already have such kind of data. Then we can give this point and answer yes, this is definitive, and this drug can cause this reaction. And a re-challenge is satisfactory. Means when you means in many circumstances, if other treatment options are available, we don't usually re-challenge. But in cases when there is no other treatment option and we have to give that particular drug, then many times we have to give the drug again and this is called re-challenge. And after re-challenging, obviously, if the ADR is happening, then we can say certainly this drug has caused this adverse reaction. So this is how we classify one in these WHO Uppsala Monitoring Center's causality assessment scale. So this was the certain part, and now it comes to the probable and likely. Now the next is possible. Possibly this adverse reactions has happened because of the drug. It can be unlikely event or laboratory test abnormality with time to drug intake that makes relationship improbable but not impossible. So these things will be there, and diseases or other drugs provide plausible explanation. Means unlikely means this drug cannot cause this reaction by this as per this causality assessment scale. And conditional means we require more data, or unaccessible we require more data to be supplemented to establish more strongly this causality assessment. So this challenge we already know, giving of the drug to a patient is called challenge. D-challenge is stopping the drug, and D-challenge also may be like stopping the drug, but not completely. By the dose we can reduce. We reduce the dose, also called D-challenge. Now positive and negative D-challenge I've already told you. V-challenge also I've already told, means after stopping, if we again starts the drug, and many circumstances we again restarts the drug, but with titrated or different doses, also called as re-challenge. And in cases in which cases this is called negative and positive re-challenge, you all know. Now comes to the next part, which is patient counseling. This is actually lacking in our country. Many hospital settings, many doctors don't even have the time to see the patients properly. They usually gives hardly 3 or 5 minutes to a patient, and because if we compare our population in the country right now in COVID Corona times, you can see so many patients, but there is nothing about when we see the medical facilities, and each and everyone is not getting proper medical care. And it is because of the we have a lot of population. And when we see at when we look at the healthcare staff who is working in comparison to the in comparison what we what population we have, is very negligible. So a lot of workload is there, but still some patient counseling has to be there. And this patient counseling can prevent many adverse reactions from happening. Because see, as a healthcare professional, because you all are studying pharmacy, obviously you'll come to know with many medical terminologies, many medical terms, many things about the drugs, their pharmacology. So you, for you it will be very easy to say yes, this is common thing, we all know about it. But when it comes to the layman, it is very problematic. If you see, if you look at this, the population, they are very less literate. They don't even know how to read and write. So in such situations, we have to make patients understand this drug. This is how this drug is, and this is how it has to be taken, and what all things to be eaten or not eaten. It has to be taken on an empty stomach or not. Means some many drug interactions we also must tell to the patients. So all those things must be there. So this is how we can prevent many adverse reactions from happening. So this is how we can prevent many adverse reactions. Now it is about the medication adherence. So we have to tell many all the patients to not to stop any drug, to not to stop any drug in the middle of the treatment. See, if we see in this all kind of antibiotics, see, all comes under Schedule H, and they cannot be prescribed at all. Means they cannot be given through the OTC counter without prescription. See, many patients will directly go to the pharmacist at the shop. Means their pharmacist also will not be sitting there. Means someone there, they'll be lending their licenses, which is not ethical. And obviously, our government is working very hard to stop it. Um, to stop these things. So if I will tell you that medication adherence is very important. How it is very important? Why it is important? See, if we simply take the example of antibiotics, we go to the medical shop, we ask some sir, मेरे को खांसी हो रहा है, मेरे को जुकाम हो रहा है, कुछ दे दो इसको. So what they'll tell, they'll give you some kind of augmentin, and they'll give you it for only 2 or 3 days. See, if you take the augmentin, it has to be 4 days or 5 days or 7 days treatment. But they will give for only 2 days, because they will look at the patient and they know they cannot afford it. See, so if they cannot afford it, only 2 days for their benefit, they will give for 2 days, because they are at least selling four augmentins, right? But they do not think about the patient's health. Why they are not thinking about the patient's health? They are looking only for their own benefits, which is not ethically right. And we have to be aware that we have to make the patients aware that they do not they should not stop their medications. They have to complete their whole treatment, whatever is being given to them. Then only the whole treatment is of any use, otherwise it is not of any use. And from the next time onwards, this antibiotic is not going to work. This also has to be told to the patient. Then only they'll come to understand. Yes, they'll think about their health, and then only we can maintain their, we can prevent the health, we can safeguard the health of the patient. And then only we can prevent the resistance from happening about the antibiotics. You can see many generic antibiotics are not working these days. Even the younger people don't get to see any kind of effects of antibiotics. So see, these pharmaceutical firms are continuously looking for newer generation of antibiotics, which is if we all take right time, right antibiotics at the right times, obviously we are not going to develop any kind of resistance. So we have to think all those things, um, and we have to counsel the patients very rightly. But how we are going to counsel, it is not like simply you you go and counsel. Okay, you have to know the pharmacology of the drug, and this be understood by your faculty. They can make you can be given to the patients, right? So we know all the things about the treatment, and you know all the health condition about the patient. Without that, you should not counsel the patient. Now, we have to also identify high risk patients and the drugs, uh, like drug interactions, polypharmacy, chronic medications, like long-term treatments which are being going on. And you can see this example I have quoted, the long-term use of proton pump inhibitors in osteoporosis. See, in osteoporosis, this PPIs, I don't think they have any use. But why for osteoporosis, this PPIs will be given? In many cases, the patients with osteoporosis will be receiving NSAIDs. All NSAIDs tend to cause some problem with their mucosal layer, and to prevent that damage to their mucosal layer, this PPI will be given. Okay, so those long-term PPIs use has to be taken care of. So this is the reference. So in elderly also, we have to be very vigilant, because in elderly, their whole environment will be different. Their physiological decline will be there. They'll have many comorbid conditions, and their genetics will be different, and cognitive impairment will be there. Their forgetfulness will be there, and obviously they'll not be adhered to the medications properly, because they might not be able to see it properly. They will take the wrong drug, wrong dose, anything they can take. But so for the elderly, we have to be very much vigilant, because they'll be having many comorbid conditions. Obviously, they'll have many treatments will be going on. So this is called as polypharmacy. So and there all the drug handling will be altered, and the drugs which were actually which used to give the needed effects will not be there in the older ages. So there will be a lot of adverse reactions. So for that, we have to be very vigilant for the elderly patients. So this, you can see today I got my happy pills and my pissed off pills mixed up. I think I took one of each. So now I am pissed off, but I'm happy about it. So this is just like just for elderly people. They are very forgetful, and we have to be very vigilant about the elderly's health. So we have achieved many things, and where and we again are continuously doing our efforts to what we want to achieve. So you can see from there where you are right now and where you want to reach. So where we want to reach, we have to have an effective ADR reporting system. We have to have a causality assessment committee. Monthly review meetings has to be there in the hospitals. We have to provide feedback cards. It is not simply, this is not a one-way process. The healthcare professional, if they are reporting to the pharmacovigilance program, we also provide feedback cards. And when this your if suppose your pharmacy institute have some kind of collaboration with some hospitals, where the students goes for hospital visits, obviously if they are reporting some kind of something, then we have to provide some kind of feedback to the doctors. Any new drug utilization, drug evaluation studies we should conduct in the and we can inculcate those things into the PharmD and MPharm projects, and obviously in BPharm practice, and other BPharm students also can do that. If they have more inclination towards the pharmacy practice, they can do that, and we can also do some promotional activities about the pharmacovigilance. So and these all things we can do. And ADR bulletins and blogs we have to see, keep on visiting about. I have given the links here, and you can also go through our newsletters which we publishes Miss quarterly we publish, and you can access them on our website www.ipc.gov.in. Okay. And thank you very much for bearing with me. I think I was boring, so I thought of uh, clearing it as soon as possible. So hope you all might have got some kind of idea about it. If you have any kind of doubts, any questions, you can please ask.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the lecture. Thank you for giving us so much information about pharmacovigilance, what is PVPI, and what are the various programs run by pharmacovigilance. And also, you have told about the various information like toll-free number, how to recognize those numbers, and how we can file the ADRs as a healthcare professional also, and for the customer and for the layman, how we can file that. So that is very informative. You have also told about the current situation, that how we should take the medicines, what are the various ADRs. Currently, we are also seeing in news, and after vaccination also, so many people are getting some ADRs. So just I want to know, sir, कि न्यूज़पेपर में तो हम डेली डिजिट्स देखते ही हैं कि इतने लोगों का वैक्सीन के बाद भी कोरोना पॉजिटिव हो गए हैं. तो कुछ लोगों के दिमाग में ये चीज़ आ गई है कि वैक्सीन लगाने के बाद में कोरोना नहीं होगा. इट्स नॉट द ट्रीटमेंट एक्चुअली. सो आई जस्ट वांट टू नो, सर, कि अभी आप लोगों के यहाँ पे ऐसा आपको डेटा जो मिलता होगा कि वैक्सीनेशन के बाद भी, सर, आ रहे होंगे आपके पास डेटा आइडिया के. तो सर, व्हाट इज द करेंट फिगर, व्हाट इज द करेंट सिनेरियो फॉर दिस, क्योंकि आप एग्जैक्टली बता पाएंगे सर हमको डेटा जो है.
जी, एग्जैक्टली तो actually I'm not authorized to give actual situation whatever it is, because we have programs with us, ministry with us, and we usually whenever there is a question from Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha or ministry, wherever it is, we reply to those. But when it comes to the data, it is like if I want to give you the overall situation about the adverse reactions, yesterday only I got vaccinated. I got my first shot yesterday, and since yesterday I am like this in the morning I was like lethargic. I was not able to stand, miss, wake up, and I had a lot of pain in my left arm because they are giving it in the deltoid muscle. And but what I will through the data, because through the data, if I say, it is like more than 13 crore doses has already been given. And if we talk about the adverse events, which are, those are very less. And when it comes to the serious ones, when it anything, everything which is coming to the pharmacovigilance program of India is not adverse reaction or adverse event, until unless we do the whole causality assessment, which I told you already, which is very technical part, and it is not easier part. Until unless you see simply किसी के ऊपर इल्जाम लगा देना कि ये इसी ने किया है, इसी ड्रग की वजह से हुआ है, so it is not right ethically. It is not right. So what we have various committees with us which go through case by case, and then only they come up with causality assessment. So right now, with if we talk about the Covishield and Covaxin, Covishields are like if you talk about the Covaxin, only means very less, like 50 lakh or 40 lakh doses are for Covaxin. Rest all Covishield has been given to the Indian population. And if we talk about the commonest adverse reactions or adverse event following immunization, are like pain in the injection site, and like swelling in the injection site, and some of the cases like they are feeling numbness in the left arm. So such kind of things are there. However, many some reactions, like very serious reactions, also has been reported to us. But until unless we do not get the causality done, we cannot say anything. सी वो होता है ना कि रिपोर्ट करना एक अलग चीज है, जांच पड़ताल तो होना चाहिए. So until unless we get the causality done, we cannot say anything. And for the causality of these adverse event following immunization is the part of universal immunization program. We collect the reports and we also submit the reports to the universal immunization program, and they are the one who actually do whole investigation about the vaccines. So currently what we do, we for pharmacovigilance program, we actually look for the drugs. Vaccines also, vaccine is one of our priorities, but we actually look for the drugs.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Nishi Jain, sir. He raised his hand. Sir, please, Nishi, sir.
First of all, thank you
Hello.
very much, Dr. Vijit Agrawal ji. And
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I just would like to know that since it is started since 1998 in full phase, and
Yes.
almost 23 years has been completed in pharmacovigilance. What is the outcome in last 2022 to 23 years? Because whenever we talk about the general public or laymen, you may say the laymen, they still feel there is a lot of problems with the medicines. So just can you narrate in a few letters that what's the outcome of pharmacovigilance program in our country?
Sir, yes, sir. So what is it actually, sir? See, and you are very right. In 1998, it actually took off. But when we talk about Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission are taken this responsibility from 2011 onwards. And what system we use actually, this system is called Vigiflow. Vigiflow is ICSR India individual case safety reports management software, which is which is actually managed by Uppsala Monitoring Center, Sweden. So we use that particular software for reporting. So what we do actually, sir, on monthly basis, we provide drug safety alerts throughout the healthcare professionals who are registered with us, whose contact numbers are available with us. Even if suppose from your institute, if you want, you can also provide your contact numbers to us. So on periodically basis, you will also receive those safety alerts on your phones. First. Second, these safety alerts are also available on our website, which I have already mentioned twice, which is www.ipc.gov.in. So on this website, you can go through that. The drug safety alerts are available. So those drug safety alerts are actually for the drugs which are like of special interest. Special interest, what we can say means we have to keep a good watch over them. Yes, these drugs are causing such adverse reactions, and we have to keep a proper watch on them. And another thing is we have a signal review panel with us, which committee is consisted of various healthcare professionals throughout the country. And among them, we have regulators with us, thus from the CDSCO, which is the regulatory authority. So periodically, they look at all the data which is submitted to PVPI, and then we come up with a safety signal. So this signal is what to say is the recipe. The whole recipe is the signal. Whole data is the ingredients. So this recipe, when it comes out, this recipe will be served to the Central Drug Standard Control Organization, and then they have their subject expert committee from which they take some regulatory decisions on that particular data, which has been supplemented by PVPI from Pharmacovigilance Program of India. And then what they do on basis of our recommendations, they communicate those signals to the marketing authorization holders throughout the country, whoever is manufacturing that particular drug. So that this any kind of what to say, suppose their PIL has to be updated. So on the basis of our data, their PIL will be updated. So there are these kind of things we do.
Devendra, sir, kindly mute yourself.
I think someone is
Yes, sir.
muted.
Yes, sir.
So I think so. This is how, sir, we actually get the data. We and also the I have already told about the public health programs which are which have a memorandum of understanding with us. So MOUs we have already signed with them. So what we do, the programs also use certain drugs. Like if we talk about NVBDCP, National Vector Burnosis Control Program. So among under the NVBDCP, we have various diseases which they take care of, like malaria and filaria and Kala Azar means leishmaniasis. So we have collaborated with their this Kala Azar program. So for that, there are only two drugs they are using right now under the program. So we are actually vigilant for those two drugs. One is miltefosine, which is used. Which is provided under the program, and another is this liposomal amphotericin B, means this drug is also used. So for them, we do the we collect the data, we collate the data, and we make proper analysis, and then we recommend certain things as per the basis of the data to the program and to the regulatory authorities. This is what we do.
Thank you, Dr. Vijit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nishi sir, for asking the query. Now, if any other participant, if they want to ask some query, you can also write in the chat box, or you can also unmute yourself and ask to sir. Any other participants?
Uh, Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sir, audible.
Yes,
Yes,
very
yes,
much.
yes.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. You are giving a nice session, and
Thank you.
really, sir. Also, I have lot of knowledge for pharmacovigilance, sir. Sir, one
Yes,
question I have got, sir.
please.
What do you mean by the spontaneous reporting and mandatory reporting?
Okay. See, right now we do not have any mandatory reporting. So, see, mandatory means it becomes the part of your life. It has to be reported. So many of us do not report adverse reactions. Only if I talk about actual population who is reporting, it will come up to only 1 or 2% who are reporting adverse reactions. Rest no one reports. So this is all about voluntary reporting. So this is not mandatory reporting. This is voluntary reporting. However, through the one gadget notification from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, one gadget has been released according to which all the marketing authorization holders, means the manufacturers of the drug, must have a pharmacovigilance system in place in their pharmaceutical companies. Then only they can run their manufacturing unit. So this mandatory thing has been for them, not for the consumers. So this is not mandatory for consumers. It is mandatory for those pharmaceutical industries. Now comes to the spontaneous reporting. Spontaneous reporting is the reporting of adverse reactions spontaneously. Means if suppose I want to report something, it becomes spontaneous. Means whenever I am getting the data, whenever I am experiencing any adverse reactions, I am reporting it. This becomes spontaneous. This becomes spontaneous. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir,
Okay.
one more question.
Please.
Sir, आपने बताया the thalidomide is a birth defect in the babies, but sir,
Mhm.
it is a medication to treat the cancer.
Yes. So pharmacovigilance not only tell you about the adverse reaction, it also tell you about where this drug has to be given or where not. So obviously this drug has been listed as a category X for pregnant ladies. So this drug cannot be given to the pregnant only in certain conditions. Yes, this patients. Hello. Have you got the answer, sir?
सर आपका थोड़ा सा नेटवर्क फ्लक्चुएट हुआ था तो लास्ट का सुन नहीं पाया सर, कैन यू प्लीज?
Okay. I'll repeat again. So what I say, this pharmacovigilance not only tell you about the adverse reactions, this also will tell you, will come up with many PIL changes, their indication related changes, because many drugs are given for certain other conditions which they are not approved. So this thalidomide drug is being given for cancer conditions, and it is properly used and it is showing very good results, but only it comes to the category X for pregnant women. It cannot be given and it cannot be prescribed for the women who are pregnant or of childbearing age. They usually don't give to them.
थैंक यू सर. आई थिंक शिवेंद्र आपका डाउट क्लियर हो गया होगा.
Thank you.
थैंक यू सर. एनी अदर पार्टिसिपेंट्स?
Thank you.
सर आपने इतने अच्छे से डिटेल में एक्सप्लेन किया है कि बहुत सी चीज़ें हमें आज नई पता चली हैं, और आई थिंक सभी पार्टिसिपेंट के जो डाउट्स थे वो क्लियर हो गए होंगे. सो थैंक यू वंस अगेन सर फॉर ज्वाइनिंग विद अस. सर कैन यू प्लीज स्टॉप द स्क्रीन शेयर so that I can share my screen?
Okay. One second.
Thank you, sir.
So here, if suppose I am very much confident that you are not able to ask right now because of the hesitation or something. If you want any kind of answer from us, you can always write to us, which is the email ID I'll tell you. This PVPI, Pharmacovigilance Program of India, pmission@gov.in. So anytime you can write to us, we will be very much happy for answering any of your queries, first thing. And the last thing, which is whenever you are there in seminars or conferences anywhere, it is not just for coming and looking for certificates. Okay, whenever you are there, you should listen to whatever it is, whatever the speaker wants to tell. Let them be bad or good or anything, but if you listen to them, you will obviously certainly going to get some idea about what they want to convey. And the person who is afraid to ask is afraid to learn. So always ask your doubts. I am very happy that Mr. Shal, each of your doubts you can always open to email us, and we will be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
So can you please share the email ID in the chat box so that every participant can get this email ID?
Yeah. Sure.
The feedback link is also shared by Priyanka Rathore ma'am. So please, all the participants, kindly find the feedback link of today's session. Your attendance will be monitored on that basis only. Please find the feedback link which is shown in the chat box. Sir, once again, thank you so much. And on the behalf of entire Sage Group and SIRT Pharmacy, I would like to share this token of appreciation in the form of certificate. Sir, kindly accept this certificate which is shown in your screen. Thank you once again, sir, and kindly accept this. And thank you so much, sir. आपने लेक्चर लिया, ऑल्दो आपने कल वैक्सीनेशन भी कराया, so I can understand कि आज सिचुएशन आपकी कैसी होगी, बट उसके बाद भी फुल एनर्जेटिक आपका लेक्चर रहा, एंड हमें बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला सर आपके लिए.
I was very happy. Maybe thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
It's all because of you all who are working tirelessly, Surbi ma'am and Miss Priyanka and all the management, all the people who are behind it, they don't know their through what kind of hard efforts they are going through, but you all are making this event very successful event, and my best wishes for the
Thank you so much, sir.
director, for the management, for the coordinator. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing such a valuable information on ADR. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome everyone.
Sir, I think if you have any important assignments, so that you can leave, sir, if you want to attend some other assignments. So
Okay, thank you. Then I leave that.
yeah, okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You too, you too.
There is a small announcement for the participant that our lecture second will be start on time by Dr. Sarvesh Sharma, sir, who is a quality pharmacist, SMS District Hospital, Vidisha. And the lecture will be very informative. It will also be very informative. I request all the participants to attend the session that will be start sharp at 12. So stay connected with us. You can take a lunch also in meanwhile. It's 11:30, so we are having half an hour of time. So you can take your lunch, and after that we will meet on 12. So thank you so much and have a nice day.